presenting, but I want to keep things on a schedule here. I'm Robert, I'm the building commissioner here in Lowell. I want to thank Cisco for putting this together. He's spoken to us before, but we have all the people, and as you can see, we reached out to the communities, and the presentation and the information was useful. All of us here in Lowell use the system that, and the training that Cisco gave us, and we have new inspectors, so we want to have again. But I think this is a very good thing to reach out and meet everybody. So I'd like to have everybody just go around and introduce themselves so we all know who we all are. And then Cisco can get started with the presentation. So as I said, I'm Robert, I'm the building commissioner here at Lowell. We have our building inspectors, we have some people from fire prevention here as well.
Hi, I'm Mike Weber. I'm a housing inspector for Community Teamwork right down the street.
My name's Lou Flores. I'm also with Community Teamwork here in Lowell.
Paul Orlando. Paul Orlando, I'm the building inspector for Rockport and Manchester.
Dan Tway, building commissioner for Westboro.
Louis Vasquez, CTI housing inspector.
Dennis Barrow, fire prevention.
Buddy Latham, fire prevention.
Martin Furtado, Lowell inspector.
Steve Norco, Lowell inspector.
Christopher McWhite, fence examiner.
Sean Shanahan, Lowell building inspector.
John Millian, City of Waltham building inspector.
Paul Kelly, Framingham code enforcement.
Randy Shadnoff, Lowell housing authority.
Dave Brown, fire prevention Lawrence.
Paul Macaron, fire prevention, Lawrence.
Craig Shana, City of Waltham building inspector.
I think everybody knows, but there's sign-in sheets if you want to get CEUs, building officials,
Yeah, 2 hours and then 4 hours.
if you're going to stay. So with that, I'll introduce Cisco. I think most of you know him. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for.
Thank you.
So first of all, if everybody's got their coffee, you don't think anybody else is coming? Bob, think this is
I don't
good?
know.
Okay. One of the things that I'll start off with is, so that everybody can get a chance to, sugar up or coffee up, is I'm going to talk a little bit about this fire escape over here that I'm going to be bringing, and every now and then, just to give you little guys a break, and as I'm speaking, feel free to take turns walking over, just walking around. But it's a great interesting piece because we usually do what's called downtown walkarounds, where we take you out on nice days like today,
Not today.
without gloves, and we walk to the fire escapes. And actually, some of the training we did last time, Bob walked around in the alleyways, remember Bob?
I do.
And we basically do what's called downtown walkaround. Is once you get a class like this, we need to get you to look at these in your downtown so you can identify. But the way you're not going to identify these is not by getting on it and basically load testing it with a live body. You want to get underneath and look for telltale signs. So some of the things I'm going to be speaking about over there is what are the problems that you have on these fire escapes. So instead of having everybody right now just come around it, feel free as we're talking, 2, 3, just come along and just poke your nose onto what is here. So this is a piece that we actually replaced this entire fire escape out of an elementary school. This fire escape was in this condition, and all we did was 4 feet wide. All we did was slice it down the middle, and then we put a piece of new flat in the middle, and basically rejoined it the wrong way. So everything that you see on here is 75 years of neglect, 75 years of Band-Aids, and 75 years of what was a system that basically was vendor-driven, we call it. Vendor-driven means that when this was built 75 years ago, did we need a permit to paint it 5 years later? 10 years later? How about 75 years later? If I want to paint this, do I need a permit from you?
You do now.
No, you don't. Anybody issuing paint permits for fire escapes lately?
No.
Raise your hands. No. So what happens is the vendors of yesteryear basically were hiding in what's called the paint permit. So the paint permit is that in case you come up on me, anytime I'm on a fire escape and I am welding something with or without a fire permit. I'm welding on this thing, with or without a fire permit. If I'm not pulling a permit, you think I'm gonna, building permit, you think I'm gonna pull a fire permit? And if you come up on us, what do we say to you? What are we doing? We're just painting. And we're changing a couple of bolts. All under a maintenance. So this has been a vendor-driven industry because 75 years ago, you were just maintaining. And these things were built to last. But when you look in here, you're going to see some of the issues on this fire escape that now have some issues. One, you see all this orange? It's an indication of what? The orange, all this orange color on below the paint. Lead paint. Anything older than 78, presumed to have lead. The EPA just declared that as of 2010. So, can I put an open flame to anything that has lead? So can I weld on it? So welding is the preferred method by a lot of guys. They'll show up, they will either leave the rust inside the connection and then they'll just weld it. Can they do it if it's older than 78? In everybody's city, every fire escape is newer than 78 or older than 78. So 95% of all your fire escapes are older than 78. You get a few new ones, but not that many. So they all have lead. So when you start looking at what we did here, and this was buried in the ground, this was in a school where children used this every day to recess. This went up one floor to a door, and every day this came down and went to a recess. The person that made us change this out was the facilities manager there. Says, hey, you gotta come down and just change this out. It wasn't a building inspector, and it wasn't a fire prevention. So, one of the things that we talk about with fire escapes, which is very important, we call it the bastard child of egress for a reason. And that is because it is one of those things that not many people want to see. So you'll inspect a building, and you'll make sure that they have the right lights, the right exit signs, the right doors, the right this, the right that, but then as soon as you walk by a fire escape, for some reason, either you're looking down or you're looking away. And that's what's been happening with these fire escapes that have been just getting paint jobs on them, not real inspections, and that's what we're going to talk about today is what is already out there that's going to make this process of inspection, which now will include a permit, which now will include EPA requirements regarding lead, which now will require drawings in case you're going to replace it with another one. So that's all, it already exists, we're just going to make you aware where it exists. But you're looking at a fire escape here that 75 years was basically kindergarten through 8th grade was exiting children. So now, let's take a look at the fact that I got fire prevention and building department in here. 40 out of the 50 states, you know who watches this stuff? Fire prevention. You know, in 10 out of the 50 states, who watches this? Building departments, okay? Massachusetts happens to be, the building department is watching this out. But there's a few fire guys in here, and basically there's a rule that they have. In case of fire, don't use the
Fire escape.
So that comes out of the firemen. The older firemen tell the newer firemen coming in, if all hell breaks loose, you know, never use this thing. Can you imagine that? Firemen are being internally trained by other firemen to say, hey, go grab the ladder, even if it takes you 3 to 5 minutes. Call for one of the ladder trucks, even if it takes 5 to 10 minutes. And everybody usually dies in the smoke part of it within how many minutes? So we don't have those 3 to 5 minutes. We don't have those 5 to 10 minutes. But when you look at this fire escape, every wrong way to fix it has been done to it here. It was buried in the ground. Look at all the rot that it did. It's got all historical band-aids here, and we've also put in some bolting to show that this fire escape, and 98% of all the fire escapes built in the United States are built with bolts anyway. People have been welding them because it's easier, faster. So, but not, a lot of times not removing the rust. A lot of times basically band-aiding it because it's another 5 years. So these fire escapes are guaranteed not to pass every 5 years. As soon as you refurbish them, then the fire escapes are guaranteed to pass structurally every 5 years. The only thing you have to keep worrying about is the paint, because you can't guarantee the paint. When you paint over old rusty fire escapes, in 5 years' time, it's going to be rusty again. Not necessarily full, but if you've changed the connections and you've siliconed the connections, you're not going to have a structural problem on passing these. You're just going to have a paint problem passing these. So that's all we're going to talk about today, and what is happening nationwide, what codes are out there, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to show you. Lowell is a model city, so we have sample confidence tests, which is nothing but a final exam for a structural engineer to take. Not an opinion letter anymore. Basically, he has to basically check yes, no questions all the way down regarding this fire escape. And one of the key questions is is, are there, of all the connections, are they all 100% free of internal rust? The connections into the building, which is usually a through bolt or a connection into the building, have you verified those? If not, if you only spot repair these old fire escapes, you must conclude in a load test. If you don't, if you can't provide the city other evidence of strength, then a load test is going to be the final. As soon as you start looking at load testing, which is not what we're going to be pushing today, we're not pushing load tests today. We're just going to say that that's your trump card in your pocket whenever you are not satisfied. Because the NFPA says it very clear, we're covered. The authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. We're going to show you what other evidence of strength is and what the term certification really means. Mass code says you must examine it, test it, or certify it. The word test means load test, certified means something. So we're going to explain what we believe certified means and what everybody in the country thinks certified means, and we'll go into detail. So if anybody wants to, during one of our breaks, because again, there's 2-hour class, so we'll go quickly through it for the 2-hour class. Then the second half of the 2-hour class is more in depth, and that group will be, really looking at this, looking at we have a website called Farscape Academy, and a lot of our downtown walk-arounds are already up there for free. A lot of our classes that we've taught from here to California, we've taught from Seattle to San Diego, Chicago to Texas, and from Maine all the way down to Washington, D.C., this very same class. And all these classes are online free. So a majority of our classes is to fire prevention, but there is quite a few states and quite a few cities where building departments are, in Massachusetts it's all building department. And I'm glad to see some good faces in here that are fire prevention, because they're the ones that are going to use this. So we want to show just exactly how things got this bad, and that's what the class is all about. So as you can see on the picture there, it's basically it's the firemen that basically use this fire escape all the time. We have plug in a little piece. So I'll make it, we need a timer, make sure we have I'm going to show you some videos that have been done across the country. Primarily, one of the best videos ever done was one by Hank Philippi Ryan. You guys familiar with Hank Philippi Ryan? She did something back right after, this is how long it's been, right after the Station 9 fire. She wanted to do a piece on fire escapes. So we came and we helped her do a class, but in the meantime, as we made her walk around, she basically put what's supposed to be a 1-minute little piece on fire escapes, did a 5-minute piece. But let's talk about the codes right now first, so that we're all clear. A lot of people think there needs to be code change. The codes were written anywhere from 50 to 100 years ago, and this was dealing with International Fire Code, NFPA, and International Building Code. And they all pretty much say the same thing. So we really don't need to change the code, we just need to better describe what the code is supposed to be saying. So the International Fire Code says, and when it comes to the testing, depending on the structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. So the fire department has something in their write-up that say that if they're not satisfied, and depending on the structural condition, so if you can't satisfy the fire marshal, he can pull out the load test card. Okay? It's supported by the NFPA. Now, some states are going to the NFPA, they're using Life Safety 101, correct? That's sort of the first part, and then use the other two codes. Well, they say it the clearest. The authority having jurisdiction, building or fire, shall be permitted to approve any existing fire escapes there that has been shown by load test. That's the first thing they want. They want you to load test it. Or other satisfactory evidence of strength to have adequate strength. So what we want to talk about today is what is this other satisfactory evidence of strength, so that you can avoid the load test. Because load tests are $3,000 to $5,000, $5,000 to $8,000 or more, and it buys no bolts, buys no paint, and just a bunch of guys putting weight, whether it be sandbags, water bags, or cabling, with the weights down at the ground, yanking on this thing. And everybody knows what a pass grade looks like, right? Anybody know what a fail grade looks like on one of those things? They're on the ground, and the owner's freaking out. you broke my fire escape. You know, it's better to break a fire escape under load testing than with real live people. We'll show you what live load testing looks like. But we're not, this is not a load test class. This is to say that these two codes have that as a background if you can't satisfy the building commissioner. And then our building code, 1001.3, says testing and certification. All exterior fire escape systems shall be examined or tested and or certified. So they say examine it, they say test it, they say certify it, but what have we been doing for the past 50 years in this state? Examining it and calling it a load test and a certification. And right in the only one that really has a document that's been used, that was Boston, it says clearly on the Boston certificate, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the fire escape is in the fire escape is in conformity with the Mass Building Code. That's all it says. You sign it. So is that a certification? Is that a load test, or is that an opinion? And some of those, you can do those examinations which way? Physically on it, and sign that document, and collect $200, $500 from the guy whose building just got a violation. Can you do it from your car? Can you do a drive-by inspection? So roll down your window, thing still up in the air, fill out the thing. Because that disclaimer protects who? To the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. Is that a physical examination, or is that my disclaimer, my escape clause? So that's what's been happening here in Mass, not just Mass, throughout the country. But we're basically going to explain what certification means and what other states are taking it as a certification. That's all. Otherwise, all three codes have the ability to load test, load test, load test. So you basically have support. In some cases, when the fire department is dealing with a client and there's a problem, they can have the building department kick in and basically push the load test. If sometimes you're having a problem in the building department, you can have the fire marshal walk in and help you with the load test question because he's not satisfied. The NFPA says it the clearest, and that the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. So we'll talk about today about other evidence of strength, and we have a piece here that we can show in detail what we consider other evidence of strength.
But right now, firefighters are taking down
Bridgeport,
the
Connecticut,
pulling up the hoses.
last year.
But earlier in the night, when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments, because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging out the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was 3 or 4 people hanging off the fire escape, they couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escape. And people hanging in the fire escapes at the rear of the building, and on this side of the building, you had a bunch of people on that fire escape.
Well, about 50 people were displaced inside this building. Our firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in, except the one unit where the fire was in. They said, that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson, on the scene of paperwork, News 8.
My question is, what do they mean people got stuck on a fire escape? In the front, in the rear, on the side? What do you mean they got stuck? They can't jump. Or height will break a few limbs. The ladders didn't operate, because this is all ladders. What happened? And here's the saddest part. Every fireman that showed up there, was he fighting a fire, or was this a rescue mission as soon as they arrived? With people on the fire escape.
Rescue.
Firefight, or is it a rescue mission first?
Rescue first.
What happens to that building as you're rescuing people off a fire escape, which is supposed to be a self-evacuation system? You're using yourself, you're not supposed to be, firemen are not supposed to use it. It's a self-evacuation system. And if the ladders don't work and people are trapped on them, how many people can you get down a ladder? Those precious minutes are just burning up that building. We inspected this complex 6 months later in the same condition. And we brought the information to the fire prevention there, but fire escapes is not something anybody wants to talk about, because if they talk about this one, what about the other 12 complexes right next to it? What happens then?
Cisco, this is probably a good time just to interrupt you. So one of the things we've done with Cisco's help here is we include the fire escape inspection as part of the 110 periodic inspections. And fire prevention, when they're out and about, if they see fire escapes, they let us know, they let the building owner know that they're responsible to maintain it. And when we find them, we have this, I'll put this over there, something that we drafted, basically it just cites the 2 sections that require that it be maintained, and then testing and certification we give to the building owners. We haven't reached the second phase, which is where we flagged the actual inspected fire escapes, because we know this is gonna be a big deal to get compliance.
3 to 5 years.
We're doing it over time, plus we've had a lot of turnover, but the goal is, working with fire prevention and the engine companies, is to identify them, inspect them, and flag them, and get the owners to comply, because we have a lot of 75-year-old plus fire escapes in the city on apartment buildings. That's the scariest thing I can think of. But that's the way we're handling it now. So I'll put this over there at the table if anybody wants to grab a copy.
And I believe they also sent that out with a tax bill, isn't that correct, the first
They
time?
did, yes. We're gonna have to do it again, another round.
Created a letter, sent it out with a tax bill, and just basically made an awareness. What this is really a program of identifying the fire escapes, not necessarily fixing them right now, identifying them, and then asking those people to basically put a placard on them that says, and we'll talk about placards, put a white one on it that says it's certified, put a yellow one on it that says it needs repair, put a red one on it saying, don't get on it, people are gonna get hurt. Now, if they're gonna fix it within 30 days or 3 years, that's a second phase of this, but just identifying a fire escape and identifying that in just loose terms that it needs a paint job, there is no dangling treads. The city will never put a white tag on it. That's for a structural engineer or others approved to the city official. But as far as just identifying, and you may want to go out and find that, like Boston did it in the 70s, they found 8,500 fire escapes. So if you have 1,200 fire escapes, go find them. Then start the process of tagging them, meaning asking the people to put a tag on. And the tag, the white comes from a professional's certification, but the yellows and the reds can be, like you mentioned, through your normal inspection process. We're going to talk about tricks, which is tagging and putting it on lists. Like you said, if you, the city of Boston, which I'll talk about now, after the Channel 7 news piece basically made it so that in case you pull a permit for anything on your building, to close the permit, you need a current fire escape certificate. So there's little tricks. Yes?
What, in your opinion, makes a fire prevention official, building inspector, commissioner, or all points in between qualified to determine that a fire escape is safe for use?
You're not doing that. I know what you're saying. No, you're not going there to say the fire escape is safe for use. You're going there and you've identified a fire escape on the building, and you only can put the fact that it doesn't have a paint job, the fact that no dangling treads. The only thing you can put on there, if you wish to put on there, is a yellow or a red fire escape. If you see dangling treads, you're just identifying it as something with a hazard. If you see that it just needs a paint job, but you're not inspecting, you're just saying, I need you to get this professionally inspected, and you send out that letter that says in 30 days, please provide us with an examination of this. So this is not an examination by the city in all, this is just identifying one. And if they see a hazard, the ones that we need to know is fire prevention. That all of a sudden they were at a building doing a smoke detector inspection or doing a sheetrock inspection, and they realized that the fire escape on the back. For example, Seattle, because of the training that we gave them, made every fire escape in Seattle must have a tag on it for the benefit of the fire department. So when the fire department comes running in the middle of the night, they look up, they see a white, all right, they see a red, don't get on it, they see a yellow, they choose if they want to get on it or not. And a lot of times yellows and reds, they don't get on. Until there's white tags on these fire escapes, the firemen have justification not to get on it, pull the ladders, do whatever they do. But the people who put the white tags on it is not the city, it's always a structural engineer or others acceptable to them.
Well, my question is probably more fundamental. We get a report from a qualified engineer or of some type who says this is kosher. How do we know it is kosher? How do we know that they're not giving us some bogus paperwork because they got a nice paycheck?
Well, I'm here to tell you that, sad to say, 6 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, it is just a fly-by, drive-by. But we got new documentation that's in that book that we prepared for them. It's called the confidence test. And that confidence test now is an actual questionnaire that says the treads, yes or no, have rust in them. The rails, the grading, the support, the through-bolt connection into the building, so it's a final exam.
Well, part of the answer too is this training is to give all of you guys that basic information you need. It's not hard because it's obvious, just as
Right.
we show you. So
And this confidence test, you can actually go online to seattle.gov and download out of seattle.gov, out of tacoma.gov, out of LA. They basically started coming in. We can't have opinion letters coming back from the engineers because there was no money to be made. One of the reasons why a lot of engineers hadn't stepped into this is for 75 years, who was ruling it? Vendors were ruling it. vendors who were painters, basically, and if there was any Band-Aids, they called their friend Charlie. Charlie would come down and weld this tread or change that bolt or do whatever, and the guy would basically take a job that was $15,000 and do it for $1,500. After a while, these painter guys started getting competition from landscapers, from handymen, from, you know, the local florist who wants to make a buck out of the landlord in the building, because as long as you didn't need to pull a permit, you don't need workers' comp, you don't need liability, you don't need any of that stuff. So all of a sudden, this is for 75 years, it's been hiding under this maintenance umbrella, and every time they change the bolt, like you said, if you change the bolt, don't you need to pull a permit? So they kept hiding it, and then whenever they got caught, they would basically hide. And if you look in all your history of all the jackets, you're going to be hard pressed to find any repair permit being pulled for a fire escape repair. And magically, a certificate just shows up. And that's what we're going to cover today. So, Station 9 Fire, she wanted to do a class, a 1-minute piece. I brought it down to the theater district by the Wang. I gave her a 15-minute training about what to look for. Dangling treads, expansion in the connection, things you can visually see from a sidewalk. And she went out and did this. In 2003, 10 years.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces, all in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him, but the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Just get away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes, rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So then over here, for months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results. Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings.
Rust is actually eating away the metal of the fire escape.
Right.
And the bottom line,
They'll get weak and then eventually fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal.
would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one, a broken tread.
So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in the cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical that the state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply
Is that your brother?
ignored.
Yeah, my evil twin, so we keep them locked in the basement.
In Boston, Somerville, Cambridge.
There's a real brains behind the operation. So.
We checked building department files
But there's no fire escape certification.
to see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports.
There's no certification in this one either.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the Director of Inspectional Services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules.
And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No,
4 more fire escapes,
did it fall through the cracks?
not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track.
How can they get away?
I guess the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made.
Would you talk to us on camera about this?
No, but when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out